Now about Wagner and what people are doing. Everyone should stay within the law. That's it. If there is any, we can ban private security activities altogether. This Wagner Group is violating something, then the Prosecutor General's office should give a legal assessment. Wagner is the call sign of one of the commanders of the Slavic Corps, Dmitry Utkin, a reserve officer who previously served in the Pskov Brigade of the GRU. Since 2014, he has been the commander of his own unit, and then the Wagner Group sounded for the first time. It was reported about the participation of mercenaries in conflicts in eastern Ukraine, Syria, Libya, the Central African Republic, Sudan and Mozambique. There is no official data about this organization. Neither in the Russian law enforcement agencies, nor in the register of legal entities, the data of the fighters are missing in the personnel forms. The organization first appeared officially as a PMC registered in Hong Kong under the name Slavic Corps. The firm hired people to guard the Syrian oil fields and protect ships from pirates. According to various sources, the training base of the Wagner PMCs is located in the Rostov region, according to another in the Krasnodar territory belonging to the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation, the FSB and the GRU.
I got into a training camp at this base. On this base, people like me come, they form units from them, train them a little and send them, well, let's say, to work on the formation of teams.
In Syria, most of the dirtiest work was done by PMC's fighters, and up to 600 Wagner PMC's fighters died at the time of the 2016 year. They were kept at a Russian military base and transported to Syria by Russian military transport aircraft. The salary of the fighters was about $4,000 a month. In February 2000 of the 18th year in Syria, Wagner's PMCs were subjected to massive air and artillery strikes by the United States during a clash between the U.S. Army and the Syrians with the support of Wagner's group. In one platoon I went forward, but these columns stood and they are shorter than 300 meters, did not reach. Those on the American flag were raised and Art began to work hard on them. And then he says the turntables flew up, started fucking everyone there. So we ran. Right now the guy called, in short, a total of 215, 200. In total, 215 10 like so.
Well, that was our mistake. In Derezer, we fought with ISIS and once fell into a trap. In ISIS I worked with the Americans. These creatures are masked by a terrorist everywhere, although we also made a lot of them there.
Well, what if you do come across American servicemen?
With a cycle. They don't know how to sit in the trenches and endure the hardships of war. They love comfort, they are used only to watching action movies like Ram. Slavs have always been considered the strongest warriors, so the first in strength are, of course, Russians, the second, Ukrainians and the third, Poles. The Arabs have always been the most cowardly. And the Americans are hanging out somewhere in the middle. Pindos are afraid to die.
Oh, aren't you afraid of death?
Everyone is afraid of death, but there is work to be done. You make commitments and you have to follow them to the end. But we keep our word.
And I repeat once again, they do not violate Russian law, they have the right to work, to push their business interests anywhere in the world. People are increasingly talking about Wagnerians in a positive way. In your opinion, as an ordinary fighter, what has changed?
Honestly, I didn't think about it. We are just fighting against scoundrels in the interests of our homeland, as always. We also fought with ISIS terrorists in Syria and bandits in Africa before.
Let's start with Wagner from the Cooks. Unofficially, Yevgeny Prigozhin has been running the private military company Wagner for 8 years, which he confessed only recently. He's not a public figure. There are only photos in the public domain. Bitcoin is a financial bag. This, let's say, is Putin's right hand in carrying out some dirty deeds, performing some tasks, again, special tasks. There are only 2 from the video. The first is from Libya, where the Wagnerians are fighting, and the second is from a Russian prison. These are shots where Prigozhin personally agitates criminals to join the ranks of the Wagner PMCs. There are no options to return to the zone. It turns out that criminals are fighting in the Wagner company. The Wagner Group is illegal even in Russia. There are Russos, there are tanks, there is everything that is necessary in order to attack effectively. The first prisoners who fought with me, it was the 1st of June by the court of the Ugledar thermal power plant, 40 people from St. Petersburg. Strict regime. Relapse. Yevgeny Prigozhin, born in 1961, in Leningrad, grew up with his stepfather, graduated from a sports boarding school. At the age of 18, he received his first suspended sentence, and 2 years later he went to a high-security colony under the article theft, robbery, fraud, involvement of minors in prostitution. In the 90s, he opened a chain selling hot dogs, then opened an elite restaurant Old Customs, where Putin also visited. I wanted to realize myself as a warrior, but I am not given the opportunity to do this. Can't wait for the borders to open for volunteers. The Wagner Group is ready to take you on a combat campaign in the near abroad. Since March, the Wagner PMCs has been experiencing an acute shortage of people. They are touted in different ways. Ads in V-contact public sites, advertising on YouTube, calling previously failed candidates. The recruitment criteria have been greatly simplified. The presence of debts to bailiffs or the absence of a foreign passport is not a problem. And since the summer, there have been so few people that now even prisoners can become PMCs. 60% of my guys are in a stormtrooper and you'll be alone. Lukashi is a strict regime for those who are sitting for the first time. There are only murderers, rapists and drug addicts. There are no those who, as it were, became. I have heard such a comparison of Wagner, which, on the one hand, may look complimentary to some of his officers, but for me it is not. So they were compared to the death's head of the Totenkopf divisions. That is, that they perform tasks regardless of losses. Well, also an approach. Only professional military personnel, officers and contractors take part in this operation. Everything is fine with us. Don't listen to all the shit that is poured into your ears. Everything is fine here. War, there is no bazaar. Here are just some stories of Prigozhin professionals and new heroes of Russia. Putin posthumously awarded a medal for bravery to Ivan Nepritov, a gang leader sentenced to 25 years for 5 murders. What is the task? Have they explained the assault squads to you?
A commonplace.
As from the system of the Federal Penitentiary Service, up to 50,000 people can easily survive for the front, and the worst thing is that these people, and if they return, they will be free. Takes people from a special zone, well, there are generally scary people there. Are there any restrictions when recruiting Wagner? For example, on a national or religious basis?
There are no restrictions. Coming here, everyone becomes members of a common combat brotherhood. The main thing is that a person should be strong and not afraid to work.
On the right.